Hi, I'm Miriam Cates. This is GBN Originals. Is this political correctness gone mad? A 9-page document, part of a 2023 diversity guide for staff at Bedfordshire Police and Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire Constabularies, has recently come to light. And its contents are, to say the least, controversial. First and foremost, this guide advises officers not to use terms like black sheep or blacklisted. Why? Because these phrases might, and I stress might, be seen as portraying certain groups as inferior or superior to others. Now let's pause for a moment and consider this. These are common English idioms that have been used for centuries. Black sheep refers to an odd one out in a family or a group. And of course, that originates from the rare occurrence of a black sheep in a flock. Blacklisted historically referred to a list of people viewed unfavourably, often in labour or political contents. Neither term has any racial connotations in its origin or its common usage. But it doesn't stop there. The guide goes on to suggest that officers should say pregnant person instead of pregnant woman. It advises against using Christian-centric language like the term faith. And perhaps most controversially, it describes gender as a social construct relating to behaviours and attributes, adding that there is a wide range of gender identities other than just male and female. Now, I don't know about you, but I find it rather concerning that our police officers are being instructed in what many would consider highly contentious sociological theories as if they were indisputable facts. Now, we spoke to Festus Akimbosoye, who's a former Bedfordshire Police and Crime Commissioner, and here's what he had to say.
What a load of woke nonsense.
Well, you could say that.
I just did.
It is. I would echo that. It is nonsense. And look, one thing I know for a fact is this: the majority of police officers in this country just simply want to catch criminals, prevent crime from happening, and protect victims. This kind of guidance does nothing, in my opinion, to support them in doing that job. And one thing I found quite astonishing about this document when it was brought to my attention just yesterday was the fact that it had all these lists of black this or black that you couldn't say. But there was no mention whatsoever about the words like whitewash. And so I couldn't understand why you couldn't say blacklist, but it was okay to say whitewash. It's just nonsense.
Well, Festus, can I ask you, as a black man, are you offended by the term blacklist or blackwash? No, you're not?
I have never met a black person yet who is going to issue with using words like blacklist or blackmail or black sheep or anything like that. And the people who are making an issue out of this, actually, in my opinion, they are actually creating more harm than they are creating good. They're not helping those they think they're trying to help. And to even go to the extent of saying, well, you shouldn't be saying a pregnant woman, but rather you should be saying pregnant person. I thought only women get pregnant. Well, I mean, it's just nonsensical, and it's not what police should be doing. And they should be focusing more on catching criminals, protecting victims.
It's white middle-class Guardian readers who've come up with this rubbish.
I want to guess that the person who probably wrote this does not look like me.
Exactly.
How widespread is this? Obviously, reports like this make headlines for their sheer ridiculousness and everybody almost laughing at how ridiculous it is to try and commandeer our language like this. But on the ground, Bobby's on the beat. Are police men and women paying attention to this, or are they just ignoring it and carrying on with their job?
Well, having been in police uniform myself as a special constable, I want to sneakily say that no, they don't. And thank goodness. They just want to deal with the reality of what's in front of them. And whether someone is black, white, Asian, Christian, Jew, Muslim, atheist, whatever the case might be, they just want to do their job. The College of Policing, which I used to be on its board, already has plenty of guidelines for police officers. And look, quite rightly, we want the police to be respectful and courteous in the way they engage with the public and with each other as well. But I think this one actually takes it a bit too far and, quite frankly, does nothing to help those that the people who wrote this think they're trying to help.
What they should be concentrating more about is why they can't attract more black and ethnic recruits to the police, Festus, and this nonsense won't help.
in the consideration of those who want to join the police from the black or minority communities, which apparently you're not even supposed to say in this document as well, I'm not sure the words black sheep or blacklist or blackmail is any of their consideration. They want to know that they'll have the opportunity to get through the examination process. They'll be able to be given fair treatment when it comes to promotion. They'll be treated fairly by their colleagues. And they'll get a good pay, actually. That is some of the things that they'll be thinking about. I'm not sure this is of any help whatsoever at all. And thank goodness, I will say, though, that this is not official policy within those Triforce collaboration. It was a reference in the footnote section to some guidelines. But the fact that it's even there in the first place, it just makes me say, well, how come someone is getting paid to write this? I'm sorry, really?
Be fired.
Is really what we need?
Yeah.
It is not necessary, and I really do hope that now that it's come to light, those with the power to do something about it will just pull this document and come up with something that's a bit more sensible.
Now, this guide introduces officers to the concept of white fragility, defined as a state in which some white people are unable to cope with or process the information they receive about racism. It goes on to say that while people may react angrily or defensively to this topic, it is important to understand white fragility, as this can derail open conversations about race. Now, let's be clear, racism is abhorrent and it has no place in our society or our police force. But is labelling any disagreement or discomfort with these ideas as white fragility really the way to foster open and honest conversations about race? And here's something that I find particularly patronising. The guide advises police officers to watch a video on BBC Bitesize, that's an educational website for GCSE students, to understand the difference between being non-racist and anti-racist. Are we really suggesting that our highly trained police officers need to be educated on complex sociological concepts using resources designed for school children? Now, supporters of these guidelines might argue that language matters, that being mindful of our words can create a more inclusive society. And to some extent, they're right. We always should strive to be respectful and considerate in our speech. But there's a difference between being respectful and walking on eggshells, constantly second-guessing every word for fear of causing offence where none was intended. And when it comes to our police force, I'd argue that clear, straightforward communication is far more important than linguistic gymnastics. Moreover, we need to ask ourselves, is this really the best use of our police resources? At a time when our forces are so stretched thinly, dealing with rising crime rates, complex new forms of criminality, should we really be prioritising language policing over actual policing? Now, it's worth noting that this document comes amid a growing backlash against diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI schemes. In the United States, of course, President Trump has recently introduced sweeping executive orders that have effectively purged DEI roles from his government. Are we seeing the beginnings of a similar pushback here in the UK? I believe we are now at a significant crossroads. On the one hand, we have a genuine desire to create a more inclusive society, free from discrimination and prejudice. On the other, we have a creeping ideology that seems intent on policing thought and speech, often in ways that defy common sense and ignore cultural and biological realities. Now, as we navigate this complex landscape, we must ask ourselves, are these guidelines truly serving the best interests of our communities and our law enforcement officers? Or are they a distraction from the real issues facing our society? I believe it is crucial that we have open, honest debates about these issues. We need to find a balance that promotes respect and inclusivity without compromising the effectiveness of our institutions or erasing our cultural heritage. But what do you think? Are these guidelines a step too far, or are they a necessary move towards an inclusive society? Let me know in the comments below. This is Miriam Cates for GBN Originals, reminding you always to question, think critically, and never be afraid to speak your mind.